This is Gemara Chulin, Daf Yod, and we're holding on Yod Amud Aleph. We are about 6 lines from the top, in the middle of a fascinating discussion, a wonderful sugya, in the comparison of Sakana versus Isser. We know Sakana is deadly, and the Gemara just finished saying that Chamir Sakanta is Yeser Chamor, Me'isura. On the other hand, Isser is spiritually very dangerous. So we're middle of the balance and trying to figure out, do we really have to be more chamer with sakana? What about a suffix sakana, etc.? Says the Gemara, let's discuss this Isser of Giloi, this Isser of leaving liquids overnight for a moment. 7 lines from the top, Yod Amid Aleph. Tanan Hasam. We learned in a Mishnah, Gimel Mashkin Asurim Mishum Giloi. There are 3 mashkim that are Asur because of Giloi. Number 1, Mayim. Number 2, Yayin. Number 3, Chalav. Water, wine, and milk. How long do they have to be uncovered to be Asur? Says the Gemara Kedei. So that a reptile, a snake, can come out from a close by place and drink from it. The kamo makim karev, and what does it mean a close place? I'm going to read Rav Yehuda. You come out from underneath the handle of a kli and drink. So what it means is literally a few moments, because it could be right nearby, pops out and takes a drink. Yishta, says the Gemara. What do you mean? Person's going to see that the snake, the reptile, this creepy crawler creature is going to be drinking from his cup. Says the Gemara, you're right. You need to wait a little bit longer, long enough that this creepy crawly creature could drink and then disappear without anyone seeing it. And that's going to be the amount of time for this halach of Giloi, which really, as we're seeing, is a few moments. And this, of course, dispels the myth that Giloi has nothing to do with leaving liquids overnight. Maybe it's just we're middle of Chulin, so there's a halach of leaving karbanos overnight of Ada. But liquids overnight is no sheiches. And that's why, if you ever see a picture of Chaim Kanievsky, you'll see a cup on his desk, and you'll see there'll always be something covering it. Nothing to do with overnight. We're seeing here a few moments. You go to the bathroom for 3 minutes. That's the halacha of Giloi. However, we'll just point out that L'maisa, I say Rav Chaim Kanievsky because he was machmer like the Vilna Gaon, but the Pashup Psak halacha is that Bizman and B'makayim Shein Anachashim Mitzuyin, in a place in which snakes are not commonly found, then one does not have to be worried about this halacha, and that's the reason why, even if drinks are left uncovered, one does not have to be concerned. Says the Gemara, going back to the Chazak of Rav Huna back from yesterday's Daf and Daf Tes, Itmar, 2 dots, 15 lines down. And you find that the knife had a nick in it. Amar Rav Huna afilu sheiber boy atzamois kol hayoy. Even if after the shechita, this knife keeps on breaking bones, and you didn't check it, psula, the halacha is, the shechita is possible. Meaning, even though after one inspected it, it's still able to keep on seemingly doing its job, still, the halacha is it is possible. Why is it possible? Says the Gemara, Chayshiran Shema Ba'ar Nifgema, because the knife might have developed this nick while cutting through. Excuse me. Yes, Rav Huna says Shema Ba'ar Nifgema, that it might have got the nick as it's going through the neck of the animal, the hide, during the shechita. Maybe it got the nick going through the bone. So the shaila is basically, when you find that your chazaka changed, how close to the finding of that change do we assume it happened? Says Rav Chisda, the last moment. The last moment, meaning we could assume you did the whole shechita, then at the end you hit into a bone, caused the issue, and that's the reason why the shechita is going to be kosher. Rav Huna says no. We have to assume it happened at the first available moment, which is going to be when? Which is going to be when the shechita started. So says the Gemara, Bishlam Rav Huna, Kishmaitzi. This Rav Huna is going like he said on Daf Tes, that what? We have the cheskas on the behema. Very good, he knew the knife was good. But the behema is a chazdaka that it's not kosher, as Rav Huna said on Daf Tes. And only until you know there was a shechita do you know that the chazaka changed. And therefore says Rav Huna, you can assume the chazaka did not change. Ela Rav Chisda, my time, what's the reason Rav Chisda says that it's going to be kosher, and we can assume that the pogrom happened at the end of the shechita on the bone. Amr Lacha says Rav Chisda, etzem vadei poigim. A bone can certainly cause a pegima. Or savig poigim savig le poigim avi savig uvadei vein safek moitzi midei vadei. So you have a savig and a vadei. You're not sure which one did it, and therefore says the Gemara. Says Rav Chisda, we have to go with the Vadai. Masiv Rava, l'sayua l'Rav Huna. Says Rava Kasha and Rav Chisda, which is a raya to Rav Huna. A famous, all these Gemaras of Chazakas are famous, all complicated, but famous. Tava one went to the Meikav Olav and himself, of Davar Chayitzes, and after the Tefillah, he found a chatzitza upon him, Afal Bishan is asking, Baisamin, Kolayan Kuloi. Even though he's dealing with them in the entire day, loy also loy tefillah. Then we say that tefillah is no good. And she'emer barili shayoli kadem l'chein, until he says barili that I didn't have this item on me before the tefillah. V'acha devadei taval. He definitely went into the mikvah. Savek havei alei, savek lo havei alei. The savek is if he had chatzitza v'kasi savek. Oh, moitzi midei vadai. And the suffix is coming and it takes away from the vadai. So we see, not like Rav Chisda, we see that we don't go with the vadai tvila, says the Gemara. And again, everyone's realizing that there's numerous chazakas that play over here, which is part of the complication. We'll just spell out. We have a person which was tamei. We have a mikvah which was tahar. We have a tefillah which certainly happened. We have a suffix if there was a chatzitza. So those are all our moving pieces, which is the reason why the Gemara responds, Shaini hasam de'ika lemeimar hemid tamei al chaskasai. We could say, says Rav Chisda, no. Could say put the person who is tamei on his status, and we could assume that he did not do the tefillah, meaning it's not because of the chatzitza, it's because we're going with his previous chazaka. Says so Chisda says the same thing by us. What do you mean? But you see that there's an animal that's shechted in front of you. Says there is a person who went to the mikvah. Says Marba, wait, but we have a reisa. You now have a chatzitza. Here you also have a chatzitza. Now what? We see there's a nick in the knife. So says the Gemara, you really have a very clear parallel happening over here. You know there was a chazaka, the behemoth was not allowed to be in. The person was tamei. Something happened, a shchita. Something happened, a tvila. Afterwards, it's found that there's a chatzitza. Afterwards, it's found there's a nick in the knife. Mamish, the same story. Says the Gemara, Sakin Itrai. In Rav Chisda's case, the knife has a nick in it, behema lo yisrai, but the animal itself did not. And that's why Rav Huna could tell you that we could assume that the animal is kosher. But in the Braisa, where did this suffix arise on the person? So now the Gemara is really honing in on the differences within the world of Chazaka. Where was the Reisa found? And the Nafkamina is obviously very slight and difficult, but the difference would be if the case were perfectly parallel, the Reisa would be found in the mikvah. If you find that the mikvah had an issue, that would be the same thing as the knife having an issue. Says the Gemara, that's how we found. We found that the person has an issue, and here it's the knife. And therefore, the two cases are not necessarily going to be computed one with the other. Says the Gemara, Meisvei. Frag the Gemara, I'll ask you, Kasha, Shachat ezaveshet v'achanishmita gargeres. So in Shechta, the first siman, so in Shechta, the esophagus, and then afterwards, the trachea became detached. Ksheirotz kasha. Nishmata gargeres. If the trachea became detached and then v'achar shachar esaveshet, psula. Shachar esaveshet v'nimsa gargeres shmuta. If you shach to the veshet esophagus, again, we have two simanim. You got to go through both. So all these cases you did one, and the question was about the other one. So now you shach to the vesh and you found the gargeres shmuta was detached, and you don't know. This was the story of Amru. Kol savik b'shchita puzzle. Any suffix by shchita is puzzle. So what's the kasha? Says the Gemara, moving over to the second to last line, goes suffix by shchita lasuye mai. The suffix for the shchita. What is that coming to include? Lav lasuye, is that coming to include kai gamna? Is it not coming to include this case that even if the suffix was found regarding the knife, not in the animal, it will also be possible. Meaning this brisa, there is a riboy. Kol suffix b'shchita. So frak the Gemara, l'chayr, this comes to say like Rav Chisda. That's a case of a suffix b'shchita, and the chayr is something to tell us the problem. Says the Gemara, lo yilasi suffix shah, suffix daras. Different types of shchita. You're not sure if you pause during the shchita. You're not sure if you press down during the shchita. Those are the cases that'll be puzzle. But in a case in which the problem is with the knife, Rav Chisda will hold his own and say that it's kosher. As we turn over to Yedem and Beis, says the Gemara, I don't understand what lemaisa is the difference. Explains the Gemara, Hasam. Is yalad b'reisa b'behema hacha sakin itzroi behema lo yitzroi. So says the Gemara, the same nafkamina that we just pointed out. Where is the reisa found? The difference being is the reisa found in the animal versus in the knife. Says the Gemara. So we have a fascinating machlekes Rav Huna Rav Chisda. The Hilchasa Kavasei Rav Huna, says the Gemara. We paskin like Rav Huna kishaloi shiber as etzem, where the bone was not broken. So says the Gemara, the nafkamina is going to be in the particulars of the case, klape the psak halacha, meaning it does not. The Gemara is not teaching us that they only argue in such a scenario. It would sound like they argue in all cases. But where is the psak halacha? Psak halacha differs, says the Gemara, that we paskin like Rav Huna, if the knife was found to be pagum, and the knife did not hit a bone after the shchita, then we go with Rav Huna that we assume when did the issue happen? At the beginning of the shchita on the R, and therefore it's possible. We pass like Rav Chisda when it's known that the knife did hit the etzem after the shchita. Then we'll assume that that's what happened, and the shchita will be kosher. Says the Gemara, Mechalder Rav Chisda, Avgav L'Shiva Etzem. According to Rav Chisda, it sounds like, as we just pointed out, that Rav Chisda Alein will hold his din in all cases. Even if it didn't break the bone, he also be kosher. But Alabamai Ifgam. So what did it become pagum with? It obviously became pagum during the shchita. So how could Rav Chisda say it's going to be kosher? Says the Gemara, Hema be'etzem demarfekes ifkam. The knife was damaged when it cut into the neck bone right after the two simanim. Not that it hit a bone afterwards, but right mamish at the end of the shchita. Says the Gemara, Avi, there was a story. When Rav Yosef ruled, as many as 13 shechted animals were aser, like shitas Rav Huna. Says the Gemara, Says the Gemara. Well, I still like Rav Huna. That's what we would think, but now the Gemara itself is going to delve into that detail. Come on, who did Rav Yosef Paskin like? Rav Huna. Sounds like even is like Rav Huna of Afilu B'Kamaisa, and even the first animal is Aser. Like Rav Chisda, we're pasking like that it's kosher. Ulevar mi Kamaisa. The first one's kosher like Rav Chisda, and then everyone afterwards is going to be treif. If we're going with Rav Chisda, let's see how we can say this. Where did the pogum and the knife come from into? We're saying now came into the first neck, like Rav Chisda. Checked the two simanim, fine. Then it hit a bone. That's where it got the pogum. Therefore, the first one is kosher, everything else is pasul. Says we're might be at the marfekes the kamaisa ifkam. But for the same money that it could have went through the bone right after the two simanim in the first shchita for Akti Gemara, that could have happened in the last shchita. So according to Rav Chisda, if you're going with Rav Chisda, then everything should be kosher. So why would you say the first one's like Rav Chisda, but everything else is pasul? Says the Gemara, must be he's going with Rav Huna. Amar le Rav Acha Rav Ravashi. 15 lines from the top. The first word on the line is matrich. Rav Kahana matrich v'dikusa ben kol chada v'chada. Rav Kahana required to inspect the knife between each and every shchita kiman. According to whom does this go like? Rav Huna. Rav Huna says the Gemara of Lifsal b'Kamaisa. Are we going with Rav Huna and the first one's pasul? Lai, Rav Chisda, Lachshuri Basraisa. And to say that all of them are going to be kosher. Yachi, Tibayinami b'dikas chacham. Why are we only saying you have to check the knife? You also should check by a chacham. It shouldn't be enough that the sheikhin himself shechs it, but it has to be brought to a local Talmud Chacham. So if the reason Rav Kahana is requiring such is for the subsequent shechita, says the Gemara, he should have also said that the Talmud Chacham has to be the one to inspect it as well. Says the Gemara, Eirecha Naman B'Yisurin. No, Eirecha is Naman. Once it was shechted, once it was inspected once, you can now go with an Eirecha. Says the Gemara, wait, so why do you ever need the Talmud Chacham to inspect it? If we're going to believe the Sheikhin himself, that should always be enough. Says the Gemara, says Rav Yechon, guess what? You're right. Eida Echad is Naaman. So why do we bring it to Loikal Talmud Chacham? Just to give him kavod. And now we go back to our original din of Rav Huna from yesterday that we dealt with extensively in the first half of today's shir, which is the rules of chazaka. Says, ask the Gemara, mina milsa dam rabbanan, uki milsa chazake. Really $1 million shayla against Shas shayla. Where do we know the statement that the Chazal teach us, uki milsa chazaka? Amar Rav Shmuel bar Nachmani Amar Rav Yonatan Amar Kra, says the pasuk Yasai Kohen min Abayis al Bezach Abayis V'Izger Es Abayis. The Kohen goes out to the entrance of the house. He closes off the house. Shivas Yom. Says the Gemara, B'Dilma Adinavik V'Alsa. How can he close the house? Maybe as he leaves the house, Batzar Le Shiura. The shear shrinks, and now the house is going to be tamei. Elalav, you know why? Says the Gemara, we see klar that once the kohen looks at the stain as the nega on the house, he's able to paskin based off of that, and we don't have to worry, it changes for a moment. So we see uki achazake. Frak the Gemara, wait. 10 lines on the white lines. Maybe he went out backwards. How do you know? Maybe he's looking at it the entire time, so he knows for sure it didn't change, and he's walking out as he sees it, but not that there is a chazaka. And therefore it would not work in the pasuk of v'yatza koyin v'yoyin. And second of all, what would it be about a nega that's behind the door? Such a case, as he shuts the door, there's going to be a moment he doesn't see it. So it must be he's relying on the chazaka. Says the Gemara 4 lines from the white lines, but wait, on the second kasha, maybe he shuts the door, he cuts a window into it, and then I'll be able to see it at every moment. Bayis ofel. If we have a dark house, we don't make windows to see the affliction. So too in our case, you would base it on a chazaka, and you wouldn't make a window to see it the entire time. Your first kasha. On the first white line. Shows us it says and we learn in Yuma that what? Daf Nun Beis over there, that he walks backwards in the way that he came in. So we see walking out backwards, it's called Yitziyah. And number 2, the Kamrid on the second white line, by Yisafal, when do we not make a window? Only when there's no chazaka. But when there's a chazaka, then it will be, meaning once you see the nega, then you're going to have to do it. So maybe, says the Gemara, you would indeed cut the window. Maybe you are not asking based on chazaka, you're seeing it the entire time. Says the Gemara, Tanya Deloy Kravacha Bar Yaakov. Ravacha Bar Yaakov just taught us that it's not the vart that you rely on the chazaka, the kayin, rather you back out backwards and you see the nega the entire time. Says the Gemara of a brisa that proves not that way. On the fourth white line, and you'll close it off. Pesach Habayis, everything you said under the lintel, and you close it off. So we darshan until you leave the entire house. Stands outside the lintel, umasgir, and he closes the door. How do you know if lemaisa you did it while being inside the house? Lemaisa is going to work. It works in any case. So what do we see? We see that the kohen could, yes, close off the house even when he does not see the nega. Not like Ravacha Bar Yaakov that said, no, there's no chazaka. Pshat is you mamish see the nega at every moment. So Ravacha Bar Yaakov, what's he going to answer as we turn over to Yud Aleph Amud Aleph? Says the Gemara, Kigon, you know what Ravacha Bar Yaakov says? Tekaima daram. Tegavri, Va'amri, Kedekai, Kai. So Ravacha Bar Yaakov, another very almost balabatish, interesting mitziastic case. Says Ravacha Bar Yaakov, when those psukim say that he can close out seeing it, it's because there's other people outside that see it. But still, we do not have a raya that we could go based on chazaka, and we'll pick it up from here, looking for another makar for chazaka, psiyata dishmaya.